What's up, guys? Welcome back to Film Freaks. I'm Megan, and today I'm going to be taking a look at just one movie and breaking it down from beginning to end and giving you my thoughts on it. But before I do that, I need you to go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any videos like this one or those little shorts I've been making almost daily of just movie recommendations. Trust me, I get it. Even I struggle with what to watch sometimes, so hopefully those are helping you out. So for today, I'm going to be taking a look at one of Mike Flanagan's earlier movies. I'm sure you recognize his stuff from like Dr. Sleep and Oculus. This movie came out in 2011 and it's called Absentia. So it starts out with a very pregnant Trisha walking around and hanging up missing flyers of a man named Daniel Riley. She is coming back home and she walks through this tunnel that's right across the street from her house, and her sister Callie's there waiting for her. We find out that Callie is a recovering drug addict, but she's there to help Trisha with the baby and to also help her deal with the fact that her husband, who is the man on the flyers, he goes by Danny throughout the movie, he's been missing for the last 7 years, and Trisha is getting ready to declare him dead in absentia, and she's really struggling with this, so Callie's basically there to help. So we see, later that night, Trisha is about to go to bed and she's, having trouble sleeping. She walks downstairs and she sees Danny standing there by a window. It's really dark and he's just staring at the window. She calls his name and he turns and he just screams at her, and he's got this like monstrous face. And we realize, Trisha wakes up, we realize it's just a dream, but again, that just shows how much she's struggling with declaring Danny dead. So the next day, Callie's going for a run, and as she's running, you see around her that there's all these like posters for like missing animals. So we obviously know that's going to be a thing at some point. So she's coming back home and she's going through the same tunnel that her sister Trisha walked through to get home. It's again right across the street from their house. But while she's in the tunnel, she sees this man sort of slumped over. And, it looks like he's sleeping, but you can also tell that like something's not quite right. And you think maybe he's on drugs, something. So Callie tries to carefully step over him without waking him up. Obviously that doesn't work. He wakes up and he looks at her and he says, "Do you see me? Do you see me?" And she tells him, "Yes, I see you." And he says, "It must be sleeping." She asks him, what's sleeping? And he's like, "I don't know." So he is holding these little things in his hands. It looks like watches and just little trinkets. And he yells for her, "Trade, trade." And she tells him, "I don't have anything for you, but I'll bring something back for you." Before she leaves, he says, "My name's Walter. My name is Walter, and my son Jamie, please tell him that you saw me." So she goes back home, and when she gets there, she sees that her sister Trisha is inside talking to Detective Mallory, and he's actually been working the case for Danny all this time. But you kind of deduce that Trisha and Detective Mallory have kind of moved past the professional relationship, and definitely more of like a romance is going on, and that most likely the baby is his. So after the detective leaves, Mallory leaves, Callie goes to the kitchen. She gets some food in Tupperware and goes to bring it to Walter. He's not there, so she just sets it down and leaves it. So the next day, Trisha is in the office with her therapist. She's had yet another nightmare about Danny, and the therapist is telling her, like, it's totally normal. This is completely understandable. It's basically like your body's and mind's way of coping with the fact that you're about to, declare him dead. And it's her mind and body's way of kind of like letting go. So while they're talking, you see Callie running again. She's on her way back home, and there's all these trinkets on the porch, and it's the same stuff that was in Walter's hands. So she goes back to the tunnel to give them to him, and there's a man standing there, and he's got like a trash bag in his hand, and he tells her, don't leave them there. And she's like, "Oh, no, they're not mine. I'm returning them." And he said, "I understand, just don't." He puts the bag down and leaves. So then we see Callie and Trisha, they're at the lawyers, and Trisha is finally getting ready to sign off on the death certificate. When she does, there's like this image of Danny standing behind the lawyer, just screaming at her, only no sounds coming out of his mouth. But she signs off, puts the paperwork, gives it to the lawyer, and she's finally done with it. So then we see Callie, she's getting ready to go to sleep, and when she goes to lay down on her pillow, there's all these like trinkets there again, and they call the police because obviously somebody was in the house, and Detective Mallory says that these were actually objects that have been reported missing in a bunch of burglaries that have been going on. So he then pleads with Trisha to move to a safer area. Again, we already know now, like, the baby's his and they have like something romantic going on. So he's like really invested in Trisha and her safety. So the next day, Callie goes on another run, and this time she avoids the tunnel. But when she gets back, we see her opening a box in her room, and it's implied that she's about to relapse. So again, she goes on another run the following day, and this time she comes up to a like apartment complex where there's a vacancy, and she lets her sister know, like, hey, there's this place that I found. I think this would be really good for you to move here. It's in a safer area. So her sister, finally agrees. And again, so her sister has received the death certificate. She's getting ready to move. She's making all these changes. And then she calls the detective and lets him know, like, hey, I'm moving. I really want to do this. Let's see if we can make this work. So she asks him out on a date, and then it shows, Callie's helping Trisha get ready and doing her makeup. They have a dress, and Detective Mallory comes to the door, and he's ready to take her out. They go out on the sidewalk, and just as they're about to hold hands, you see Danny standing like on the street, just staring at them. He runs towards Trisha, but collapses. Detective Mallory like holds him, it's like this screaming, call the police or call an ambulance. So the next shot is of Danny in the hospital, and we find out that he is severely malnourished. He's been abused, but they don't know what's going on. The doctor's taking his vitals, and all Danny can say to him is, "Do you see me? Do you see me?" So they go back home. Finally, Danny gets out of the taxi, and he turns and he just stares at the tunnel. So they go inside, and Trisha asks him, "What do you need?" And he says, "I just want to sleep." So the next day, the detectives come back, and you can tell Detective Mallory is definitely more irritated. Again, he's like really invested in trying to make things work. So he just wants to know what the hell's going on. So when he is there, all of a sudden, he's talking to the sisters, and then they hear this like scuffling upstairs. They run upstairs, and you just see Danny cowering in the corner, terrified, but you don't see anything else. So Detective Mallory tells him, like, look, we found animal bones in your stomach. We see that you're wearing the exact same clothes that you wore when you went missing, and you still have your wallet on you. Like, what the hell is going on? So eventually the detectives leave. So then it's Trisha and Danny are finally able to talk. Trisha shows him the death certificate, and she's like, where the hell have you been? He points to her obvious pregnant stomach. It's clearly not his baby. And she's, gets upset, and she's like, no, you're not going to do this to me. You're not going to make me feel bad for, continuing to live. And they both break down, and they just hold each other crying. So then we see that Trisha is, once again outside talking to the detective, Detective Mallory, and he says, basically, like, I'm going to help you figure out what happened to him. I'm going to still take care of you and the baby, but you declaring him dead was not a mistake. That man up there is not the same man that you married. Like, you did nothing wrong here. And he's just really trying to be supportive. So then we see Callie. She's about to go to sleep, and she's got her headphones on, but the lights are off. She's turning over to go to bed, and she jumps because Danny's just sitting on like where her pillow is. And he's reading The Three Billy Goats Gruff, and he's looking at the pages, and he says, it's close, but it looks more like an insect, and it has skin like a silverfish. And she's like, what are you talking about? And he looks at her and he says, I know you traded with it. I wish you hadn't. It gets fixated. And then she says, Danny, just go back to sleep. Trish will be up soon. Go back to your room. And he says, no, I can't. It's in one of the walls in there. I can't go back in there. Hopefully it goes away soon. And she's like, what are you talking about? So just as she's about to go investigate to see what it was, like, they hear this like weird insect noise thing, and Danny's like freaking out, and he's like, not again, not again. And I can't remember if I said this part earlier or not, but earlier Callie was brushing her teeth in the bathroom, and while she was brushing her teeth, there was like this insect like in the sink, and she winds up flushing it down the sink or the drain, but when she does that, you hear that same noise that you just heard with Danny. You hear that same noise coming from behind the curtain in the bathtub. And she goes to investigate it, and, nothing's there, but it's just this really weird scene. So anyway, that same noise you're hearing now. So then we see it quickly cuts to Trisha saying goodbye to Detective Mallory, and she's about to go back inside, but then she calls for him because she notices that her front door is wide open. So she calls for him, and they both hear Callie running and screaming. She's coming from the direction of the tunnel, and she's screaming, he's gone, he's gone. So through flashbacks, we see that Danny was once again taken by this creature. All we see is like it grab around its like arm, but you don't see much of the creature. You just see its hand. And yeah, it looks like it's got like 3 fingers, but they're not fingers. I mean, it definitely looks like an alien insect creature. So Callie is telling the detectives everything that happened. It's Detective Mallory and his partner now. And while she's talking to them, the one detective takes a flashlight, shines it in her eyes. Like it's clear that they know she's on something. So the detectives leave and the detectives leave and Trisha and Callie wind up getting into it. Basically, Trisha's like, I know you're on drugs. I can see it in your eyes. Whatever it is that you think you saw, it's obviously drug induced. And so Trisha is just devastated yet again because she has to fill out a missing persons report for Danny again. So the next day, the sisters wake up, they reconcile, and basically Callie shows Trisha all these things that she found about the missing people within the area, and that it's been like, I think she says like 5 people have gone missing in the last 100 years with no trace left behind. She said even the guy Walter that she saw in the tunnel, that he used to take that way to work all the time, walking through there. And then one day his son reported that he had gone missing and he had been taken by some kind of monster. So Callie tells her, like, we need to start considering that there's like a supernatural element at play here. So the next day, the doorbell rings, and it's the other detective, not Detective Mallory, but his partner, and he's asking to speak to Callie because he needs her help in identifying a body. And, of course, Trisha immediately thinks that it's Danny, so she goes running, and once they all get there, you realize that it's actually Walter that had died. And there's the guy that had been there earlier telling Callie not to leave stuff behind. He's there once again with a trash bag, and he breaks down when he sees who it is. So you figure out like that was his son Jamie. What's inside the trash bag is a dog, a little puppy. So now we know what's been happening with the animals of the neighborhood. So the police are interrogating Jamie, and he's basically telling them like, I let you know what happened before. You guys didn't find him, so but they think that he's been the one doing all these like break-ins and everything, but really they don't have anything to go on. And he's just like, I gotta go tell everybody that my dad's dead now. So he leaves, and then you see the next day that Callie now is at the police station, a complete wreck. She's shaking, and through flashbacks yet again, you see that now Trisha has been taken. So Detective Mallory is obviously devastated, and he tells Callie, like, look, you are definitely a suspect here. Don't go far. We think you're like involved. And he tells her like he knows that she's on drugs again and all that stuff. So the next day we see Callie at home printing off all the missing persons reports that she had earlier shown Trisha. And she puts these all in a manila folder plus the Three Billy Goats Gruff book and puts Detective Mallory's name on it and leaves it on the bed. Later that night, she goes to the tunnel. She goes inside and she just yells, trade, trade. And you hear Danny yelling, no, no, you can't see him. It's just all, you just hear him, and like he's kind of being like dragged through the walls. So you hear Danny screaming, and then all of a sudden you hear Trisha screaming. This part's pretty bad. They don't show you, but they sort of show you, but you don't see anything like too graphic, but you know what it is. The creature had taken the baby out of Trisha and thrown it on the ground. At that point, Callie's like, oh shit, and starts running. And just as she's about to make it out of the tunnel, whatever it is grabs her, and you just see her shoe fly. So then we see Detective Mallory, I guess, go to the house, and he gets the manila folder. He's opening it up, taking a look at everything inside. Then we see him at the police station talking to his partner and, about what could have possibly happened. And again, he's like really invested in this. I mean, that was his girlfriend, his baby, and, his girlfriend's sister, who he thought originally was involved with her going missing. So, he's really involved with this. And then we see probably days later, he's hanging the flyers up, only this time it's of Trisha and Callie that have gone missing. So he's hanging flyers up everywhere, and he turns to the tunnel and he sees what looks like Callie only it's like a really weird image of her. It's like you can kind of see that it's her, but like she's all like bent. It's very weird. So he walks over to the tunnel, he looks inside, doesn't see anything, and all you see is, you know, the camera's behind Callie, so you just see a shadow of her. You hear that weird noise, and then the hand of that creature just moves like that on her shoulder, and that's how it ends. So there's certain things about this movie that just freaked me out. So number one, again, I don't remember if I mentioned this earlier, but Walter was actually played by Doug Jones, who you'd recognize him as Billy Butcherson from Hocus Pocus. He was in Pan's Labyrinth, but the thing about him is that he's always in like head to toe makeup. Like he's never playing himself in movies. So I thought it was so cool that, you know, it was him. And he did a really good job in this. Like you just felt so bad for him. He did amazing. But when he asks, "Do you see me? Do you see me?" And then the same thing Danny asks, that part just freaks me out. Like the idea that like they've obviously been seeing people that they know, but nobody has been seeing them. So it's like, where have they been that they're able to see you and you're not able to see them? So it just freaked me out. And then also when Danny is sitting there talking to Callie and just says, "Oh, I can't, it's in the other room. It's in the walls in there." Just so casually, like he's just stating a fact. Like, no, I can't go in there. It's in there right now. And again, the whole time, like you're not really sure what it is. Like you can kind of see it, but really it's just like its arm. And like there's the part in the bathroom where Callie's trying to, you know, she hears that noise and you can kind of see something going up against the curtain, but you're not sure what it is. So Mike Flanagan does a really great job of like showing you just enough, but still letting your imagination do most of the work. This is definitely one of those movies that for me at least, it scared me more after the fact than it did while watching it. There's obviously a lot of like mention of the 3 billy goats gruff in this one. So it's the whole thing where like the 3 billy goats are crossing the bridge, and of course there's the troll and they have to outsmart it. So that's kind of the idea with this, is like it's the same type of the same concept as far as like if you're going through a tunnel or you're going over a bridge, there's like this creature and basically you need to outsmart it in order to get through it. Now, the thing with this, I don't think there's really any way to outsmart it. I think the creature, it uses the idea of a trade as a way to get you interested and to figure out if it wants you. So there's really no bargaining with it. It'll take what it wants, and once it decides that it wants to latch itself onto you, there's really no escape. And I mean, honestly, I think Danny was able to like be let out of the tunnel because Callie initiated a trade. So it let Danny out, but then once it's, you know, it realized it still wanted Danny, and then it wanted Trisha. So, and I think, I don't know if it used the baby as another trade or what the whole point of that scene was. So it obviously shows that this is truly like a monstrous entity, whatever it is. I mean, I know that there's the scene with the bug. So it's like you do kind of get the feel that it is some kind of insect, but again, you're just not sure what the purpose of it is. I mean, it keeps the people alive. Danny had food in his stomach, so it keeps the people alive. But again, like what it made them eat, I mean, it said he had animal bones in there. So it's not very clear what it wants, other than just to have almost like a collection of things. And again, it uses the prospect or the idea of a trade or a barter as a means of figuring out what it wants, and then it takes it. So I really don't think that there's any way to really outsmart it. But overall, I thought this was done so well. This was actually the first time I got introduced to Mike Flanagan's work. It was a hell of a way to kick things off with his stuff. I mean, it was really good, and it's actually still free on YouTube right now, so I'll make sure I leave the link in the description so that way you can check it out. But yeah, I definitely think, you know, Mike Flanagan is one of the best horror director writers out there. I love like all of his stuff. I just saw Oculus for the first time like a year ago. That one was like really scary. So, I mean, I wasn't expecting it to be, which is kind of why I didn't watch it for so long. But again, back then I wasn't as familiar with Mike Flanagan's work. Even when I first watched this movie, I didn't realize like, oh, it was Mike Flanagan. I mean, I watched Absentia, I think like 5 or 6 years ago for the first time, and it didn't click that that's who it was. I just saw it on YouTube and wanted to check it out. So definitely let me know what you guys think of this one. If you've seen it before, and either way, I'm going to leave the link for it in the description because it is free right now on YouTube. Yay! Who doesn't love free? So either way, let me know what you guys think. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Before you go, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you never miss a new video. Bye, film freaks.